So we're continuing our conversation, our after chat with author and world changer, Lynn McTaggart. And if you're just joining the conversation or you're listening to the clip, Lynn is the author of The Field and many other books. And there's a reason I'm saying The Field first. If you want to have an idea of all the foundations of everything we're talking about, and so many others around the planet are talking about how you personally can actually have influence on the world, influence on your own health, influence on your own wealth, but also influence on changing things on a global scale, this book is foundational. Look it up, read it, listen to it on Audible, but get that in your repertoire because it really is so important. So we're back with Lynn McTaggart and Bill McKenna. All right, let's tell some weird stories. So Lynn, what is the weirdest thing you've ever seen happen in these intention experiments?
Oh, goodness. Well, I want to just bring everybody's attention to what actually is happening with intention experiments. So let me dial back to one of our early experiments, which was trying to make seeds grow faster. So I was working with the University of Arizona. They created a very scientific experiment. So they had 4 sets of seeds. So 3 were going to act as controls and 1 was going to be our target. So they labeled them A, B, C, D. I was going to speak in Sydney, Australia then. And so I thought, well, this is a good opportunity to try doing that experiment with that audience. So I went, I showed them the photos, A, B, C, D, of 30 seeds each. We chose to do intention for seeds A. We all did our intention. It was an audience of about 700. I didn't tell the scientists back in Arizona which ones we were choosing to do our intention on. I told them it was done. When it was done, that was their cue to plant the seeds. And then 5 days later, they measured them. And it was only at that point, after they were done, that I unblinded the study and told them, oh, actually, we did the intention for seeds A. It turned out seeds A did grow significantly higher than controls. So let's unpack this for maximum weirdness. First of all, we were in Sydney, Australia. Please think about this. The seeds were in Tucson, Arizona at the Laboratory for Consciousness with Dr. Gary Schwartz and his team. That is, if you travel from Sydney via California to Arizona, that's 8,000 miles away, even longer if you go the other way around the globe. So we're in Sydney, the seeds are in Tucson, Arizona, 8,000 miles away. Plus, we're not intending for the seeds themselves, we're intending on a photo of the seeds, a symbol of the seeds, if you will. And yet we had this effect. And I did that 5 more times with different size audiences, one in Rhinebeck, New York, one in South Carolina, Dallas, Texas, Los Angeles, and then over the internet with thousands of my followers. Each time the seeds sent intention grew significantly higher than controls. So that to me is weird enough. It is that we create some sort of psychic internet when we do intention as a group. And that changes the game completely.
Wow. It is so great to see that. You know, my daughter, when she was only 3 years old, it was coming up on summertime and we had corn and we had just a big bucket. And I said, okay, I took one of the kernels out and we separated the kernels of one. And I said, okay, put all of your bad feelings into this kernel. All the bad things in your life. I want you to just put it in this kernel, and we put that kernel dead to center, right? So it's going to get maximum sunlight, maximum water. It's got the most fertile conditions in the bucket. Mm-hmm. We put the other seeds, and we did the same, but the opposite with the other seeds, and we had all of these many, many seeds that we put all of your good feelings into, and we planted them. Anyway, the seed in the center, black dwarfed, like literally black dwarf. And the other ones were vibrant green. And so I wanted her to have that experience, but how fun, that to realize, that it's the absolute bloody truth,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And, while you were speaking, I was thinking of one of the more interesting outcomes and weirder outcomes with my Power of 8 groups. So I had one group of people in my master class, and they had been meeting week by week. And there was a woman whose house was right in the line of fire with the California fires.
Oh, yeah.
The fire was just coming toward her house. So the group did an intention for essentially a dome of protection to be over this house, for there to be no dust inside of it, and for the firemen who were trying to clear the fire to have a place of sanctuary to go into. So they do their intention, the fire passes by the house, and afterward the fire made a ring around the house like a dome. And there was no soot or anything in the house. It was used as a sanctuary for the firemen. So
Okay.
that was one of the more interesting ones that we've had.
It's like Star.
That officially counts as weirdness, high strangeness. That's incredible. Yeah. So here's my thought around this as you're talking about it. Are we having an intention on an effect on an existing reality? Are we just creating a new one where in that case, the fire moves completely around? It's just like a dome. It's a new timeline, or where there's a 25-year war and all of a sudden everybody puts their attention on it and the war ends, where there's no end in sight. Are we just creating a new reality?
Okay, so that's sort of a many worlds question, isn't it? And the wonderful movie Everything Everywhere at Once,
Yeah.
It sort of speaks to something like that. I think my own interpretation is that we are actually creating every moment. And so we have that capacity as creators to change our reality at any moment. After all, quantum physicists have explained that in the subatomic world, nothing is in anything yet. Everything is only a potential of something. So I like to describe it as, imagine that you've got a chair in the middle of a batch of chairs in an auditorium. A subatomic particle is that chair, but it's not just that one chair. It's every seat in the house all at the same time, every possible self all at the same time. And the only thing that turns it from every possible chair to a single chair is the involvement of an observer. So we are co-creating. We are creating that world. And here's the thing that people don't understand. Most people are pretty unconscious about what they're thinking about most of the time. And this is another thing I teach. We have about 70,000 thoughts a day. And if my groups and my courses are anything to go by, about 80% of those are judgmental, negative thoughts. But every single thought we have, every one of those flotsam and jetsam bits of information that go through our head, every little last mendacious thought, that is an intention, and it compounds into your life's intention and also the state of the world. So we are partly responsible for this. I mean, we're not necessarily, we didn't necessarily bring into existence some of the leaders of the world. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that we're going about our own lives being negative and self-defeating most of the time, and that is manifesting our realities. So we have the capacity to change. I'm convinced And I've seen it and I've demonstrated it in 40 studies and thousands of Power of 8 groups that we are creators. We have an innate skill inside us. Everybody does. Some people are more experienced at it, but everybody has this latent capacity. And we know this as children, but it gets denied by authority figures, our parents, our teachers, etc., to the point where we stop believing it. We stop practicing it. We are diminished. But we do have the capacity to heal ourselves, to heal each other, to even heal the world. We just have to relearn how to do this.
You know, this is what you're saying is so very, very important. And I want to illustrate this with something that blew my mind. It was many years ago when Columbine, do you remember Columbine?
Yeah.
So there was a person who was in a religious order, and I'm not going to say the name because I don't want everybody out there contacting this person, but they were in a religious order, and they were standing in front of the entire Congress of other religious order people.
Mhm.
And Columbine had just happened. Somebody gets up and says, hey, if there is a God, how can you explain this, allowing this atrocity in Columbine? And this person's there, and they get taken over, meaning taken over like the words start coming out and has no idea where these words are coming from, but the words are literally coming out. And the words were, if you're familiar with the work of Dr. Cleve Baxter, you'll understand that you had something to do with this. If you had a negative thought or feeling, that has collected there in Columbine and become expressed. We are interconnected. We all, with our thoughts and feelings, are connected, and they get expressed. Anyway, as this is coming out of this person's mouth, they're like, oh, who's Dr. Cleve Baxter? You know, who is that? I have no idea. Ends up going home, you know, Dr. Cleve Baxter, you know, and boom, there it is. So Dr. Cleve Baxter did the experiments with houseplants. He was one of the original people with FBI or CIA and doing the polygraph. He attached the polygraph to the houseplants. And he went over and he was like, I wonder if anything's going on. And, you know, the machine was unresponsive, but he ends up intending to burn the plant, and the polygraph went nuts. Turns out that the plant was conscious. Now, for everybody watching, you can look all this up. It is, anyway, a lot of information on that. And it was even those Mythbusters did the experiment, and it was true as well. So my point is that the negative feelings that people are feeling are reactions. They are, in fact, automatic. You didn't choose it. I don't choose to be afraid. I don't choose to hate. I don't choose to be in fear. They're a neurological impulse, and then I think a thought equal to it. I get a feeling, and then I think a thought equal to that. Anyway, the work that Liz and myself does, we eliminate that neurological impulse, and then the person literally doesn't think the thought because they don't have the feeling. If I don't feel it, I don't think it. So in this way, you can begin to free yourself, and when those impulses are gone and you don't feel, you have room to think something else.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's so good. That's so great.
So I know we only have Lynn for just a few more minutes. Lynn, I would just like to ask, you said that you lead a retreat about changing the past. So will you tell us one weird story before we go about someone changing the past?
Oh, goodness. Okay. I have a really interesting one that occurred with one woman who had vitiligo. That's where she lost pigment in her arms and hands and body. And it had happened after she had had an infection in her mid-teens. So I had her go back there and change the energy around it. And I swear to you, because I saw it, her skin literally started repigmenting before our very eyes. So that was seriously weird stuff that went on. We have many, many stories with our last retreat, which was also at Broughton Hall, this 16th century manor house, stately home in Yorkshire. We had a woman called Lee, and this wasn't so much weird as wonderful and typical. She had a terrible relationship with her father. They had had a horrific situation going on there. And she thought he was not well, and she really dreaded his passing because she thought it would bring up all of her awful feelings again for him. So we did work with her on retro intention in her group. And what I do too is group retro intention as well, and group fast forwarding in time. So I go back and forth in time. Anyway, it turns out that after she left the retreat, some months later, he did pass, and she found she was able to wish him well on his next journey. She had no residual anger. The anger she had had, it was all gone. It was all lifted. And she said it was like the heaviest weight had lifted. And that seems to happen a lot. We have a lot of that. I love that my groups, whether they're in the retreats or they're in our other courses where they're just meeting virtually, not in person, stay in touch. One of the groups, I mean, we always encourage everybody to get on WhatsApp with their group. And one of the women in a group of mine recently said she calls it her virtual first aid kit. So whenever she's in trouble with anything, health or anything, she lets all of her WhatsApp Power of 8 group know, and they do an intention right on the spot for her. And it works just about every time. So I love that it's her virtual first aid kit, her intention first aid kit.
That is so much fun. All right, you guys, speaking of fun, we could talk to Lynn all day long and into the night for weeks, but we need to let her go for now. So Lynn, I just want to say for Bill and I, thank you so much for being here with us. And from my heart to yours, thank you for being here for the world. Thank you for the work that you do and the changes that you've made and the influence you've had even on us.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to be with you both.
Thank you, Lynn.
All right, everybody. We will have much more about reality shifting because it's one of our favorite subjects next week. We'll see you guys all again next week on anywhere you like to find your podcasts, Cognomovement YouTube channel, and of course, the UK Health Radio Network. Until then, be safe and be well. Thanks for being here with us on the New Life Perspective radio show. For more information or to find out more about the work that Bill and I do, please visit us at cognomovement.com or email us at info@cognomovement.com. See you again soon.